Hello and welcome back, it's Tall Toast here. Today I'm going to recap the adventure movie 6 Days and 7 Nights. Settle in and subtitles on. The movie begins with Robin Monroe getting dinner with her boyfriend. Frank says that she has been working too hard lately, so he has a surprise for her. He has booked a vacation for them to visit a tropical paradise in Makatea, an island in the South Pacific. In the following scene, they land on the main island of Comoa before getting ready to catch their connecting charter flight. Robin finds their plane, which is being repaired, and is surprised by how small and old it is. Quinn says they will be ready to leave in 10 minutes and assures her there will be no problems, calling himself the best pilot in the world. Frank catches up with them and convinces her everything will be fine. Quinn's younger girlfriend, Angelica, also joins them on the flight, and they depart. Eventually, they arrive and get settled into their rooms. Frank says that he wants it to be the most romantic vacation ever. Later, we learn it's 4 years since they first met. Frank then proposes and Robin says yes. As Frank goes to the bathroom, Robin heads over to the bar. Quinn is extremely drunk and tries to flirt with her. He asks how long she has been on Makatea, forgetting that he had flown them just a couple of hours ago. Frank then gets back and they leave. Robin starts to complain about how obnoxious the pilot is to Frank, not knowing that very soon things will go disastrously wrong for them both. The next day, a hotel staff member tells Robin that she has a phone call. Her boss is on the other side saying that there's a major emergency at work and that she needs her. The good news is that she doesn't need to fly all the way back because she has organized the photo shoot to take place in the nearby island of Tahiti. Robin reluctantly agrees and then becomes annoyed when she thinks about how she is going to get to Tahiti. She makes her way over to Quinn's, who's enjoying his time off and in the middle of getting a rigorous massage from Angelica. Robin knocks and then begins to negotiate with Quinn. Quinn asks Angelica if she wants to come with him, but she says she has to perform her show tonight, so she can't. They eventually strike on a price, with Robin agreeing to pay $700. He tells her to meet him at the plane in an hour. Meanwhile, Frank becomes upset as Robin tells him she has to leave. She tries to cheer him up and then makes her way over to the plane. Quinn says he's ready to go as Robin looks nervously at the weather and asks if it's safe to fly. He tells her she's got nothing to worry about, and they depart. On the flight, they make small talk for a short while before the weather starts to turn violent. Meanwhile, as this is happening, Frank relaxes at the hotel and settles into a show which is being performed by Angelica. During the sensual routine, the two briefly make eye contact. The scene then shifts back over to Quinn and Robin in the plane, where the conditions have escalated even further. Robin moves to sit alongside him and takes some pills to calm her nerves. Quinn radios into control for a weather update, but the signal is disrupted and he can't hear anything. He makes the decision to turn the plane around and head back to Makatea. Switching scenes back to the hotel briefly, Frank becomes further entranced by Angelica's routine. The plane gets struck by lightning, damaging the radios in the process. Quinn then spots an island down below and decides to go for an emergency landing on the beach to get out of the eye of the storm. He veers down towards the shore and manages to make the landing, but he destroys part of the plane in the process. The night ends with Frank enthusiastically applauding Angelica's performance. The next day, we see Quinn awake on the island and already drinking. Robin wakes up and then begins to freak out. She asks Quinn where they are, but he says they could be anywhere between Makatea and Tahiti. They have an emergency life raft, but it's no use without a clear direction to head. Robin thinks she's found a way to save them, but her phone doesn't have any signal. Quinn then drops the bad news. They only have one wheel, so they can't take off. The lightning fried the radio and emergency transmitter. He says they may be stuck with each other for a very, very long time before anyone finds them. The one thing they do have is a flare gun with a single flare. Furious, Robin demands her money back and calls him a useless pilot. Quinn gives her $300 back and then rips the other $100, telling her he got her halfway. Back at the hotel, Frank is at breakfast and then gets a call from Robin's boss telling him that Robin never arrived in Tahiti. Angelica also arrives after learning that Quinn never made it either. They become extremely nervous. Robin catches Frank ogling at her, but he tells her she's not his type because she's stuck up and that he's more drawn to a voluptuous woman like Angelica. Meanwhile, an emergency rescue operation is launched as Frank and Angelica board a helicopter and look for any signs of the plane. Back on the beach, Quinn has devised some camouflage to go hunt the peacocks that are around. We flash forward to later where he is preparing the food, and then they start to eat. They talk about their backgrounds, where Quinn says he enjoys the simple things and is content with his life. They share a brief moment before Robin gets up to go sleep in the plane. The next morning, Robin awakens early as a plane flies overhead. She grabs the flare gun, but only manages to set a tree on fire. Quinn becomes upset and berates her for wasting the only flare they had. He calls her attempt absurd as the plane is likely 40,000 miles in the air and no one would have seen it anyway. She reminds him that it's all his fault in the first place. They then set off to reach the top of the mountains and see if there's anything around where they are. Quinn despairs as he realizes they're even further from where he thought, and the rescue crew is unlikely to look for them here. Robin pulls him close and tells him she needs him, and they have to be strong together if they want to survive. As they start to head back to camp, Robin spots a boat that is heading to the other side of the island. They rush to meet it there. Taking the emergency life raft from the plane, they start to head in that direction. Early the next day, Quinn takes back over rowing duties, and the two start to talk. He tells Robin that he and Angelica are just casual, and that he was married before. His ex-wife fell in love with his best friend and got together. That's why he decided to drop everything and move to Makatea. They get closer to the boat and try to signal them. However, Quinn realizes something is badly wrong. The boat crew are actually bandits, and he sees them kill someone on the boat. They then desperately turn round and try to get back to shore as fast as they can. As they set off, they are seen and then pursued by the killers. Barely getting to the shore on time, they sprint up to the mountain. However, after a brief struggle, they both get caught. Before being executed, Robin manages to convince the leader that they have found gold on the island and will give it to them in exchange for their lives. He agrees and orders them to take them to it. With guns pointed at their back, Quinn and Robin walk ahead to a spot they had seen earlier. They look at each other and then fling themselves down the hill. They sprint to the edge of the cliff, where Quinn kisses Robin before throwing her over the edge, and then jumps off after her. Back at the hotel, Frank and Angelica are drinking their sorrows away at the hotel bar after their unsuccessful rescue mission. Quinn and Robin manage to pull themselves out of the ocean and then share a passionate kiss before Robin stops after feeling guilty about Frank. They then decide not to go back to their camp and find somewhere else to hide instead. They find an old World War II fighter plane that has crashed and make camp underneath for the night. Frank walks Angelica home and she invites him to come in. He resists the strong temptation at first. She then strips off and says they need to make each other feel better. The next morning, Quinn is working on the old fighter plane and has a plan to use the raft and attach it to their plane. Meanwhile, over on Makatea, Angelica gets a knock on the door, with the hotel staff member saying the rescue helicopter will be leaving in 10 minutes. We see Frank in her bed, who has spent the night. Quinn and Robin float the raft down the river and share a moment as they clearly have unresolved emotions. Quinn says he's always wanted a big family, but that he's too old now. Robin tells him that he's still young enough and that there's time. At breakfast, a hotel member informs Frank and Angelica that they are officially calling off the search, pronouncing Quinn and Robin dead. Simultaneously, the two survivors begin to work furiously to create a ramp and pulley system that will allow them to pull the plane off the ground and then maneuver it into the ocean. The final part of their plan is to attach the two rafts to the underside of the plane, which will allow them to start it and take off from the water. They work all day. As things begin to come together, they hear a large bang with an explosion almost hitting them. The bandits have found their location and are closing in. Quinn tells Robin to get out of there, and the bandits launch another strike which grazes him. Robin pulls him up, but he is hurt badly. They get into the plane, start the engine, and start to drive right at the boat, barely managing to pull up into the air just in time, escaping in the process. Bloody is seen pouring from Quinn's shoulder. While still conscious, he gives her some instructions about how best to fly and land a plane. Meanwhile, back at Makatea, they are having a funeral ceremony for them on the beach. Frank and Angelica are inconsolable. We then see that Quinn has already passed out, with Robin now in sole control of the plane and looking extremely nervous. As Angelica tries to comfort Frank, she turns around, having heard the engine of a plane. The plane flies around, and Robin, reciting the instructions that Quinn had told her, barely manages to land it as both wings and rafts snap off. Frank and everyone on the beach rush to their aid. Quinn manages to get out of the plane before being taken out to hospital. Some time later, we see Frank and Robin together. Frank, no longer able to hold back his guilt, emotionally reveals that he thought she was dead and became intimate with Angelica. Elsewhere, Quinn is still in hospital recovering from his injuries. Robin pays him a visit to see how he's doing, and then asks him what the deal is between them. Quinn tells her that what they shared on the island was real, but she doesn't want to be with an old man that's set in his ways. Upset, she tells him that's up to her to decide, but he doesn't change his mind, and then she gets up and leaves. Later on, Frank and Robin are sitting in the airport getting ready to leave. However, she turns to him and says she doesn't think they should get married. Too much has happened. Frank is devastated and begs for her forgiveness, but she is convinced of her decision. With that, she takes off her engagement ring and gives it back to him before they get up to board the plane. Following that, we see Quinn desperately run on the tarmac to catch Robin before she leaves. However, the plane takes off before he can catch it. He looks around upset, and then sees Robin stepping off a different plane. She sees that he has come to be with her. He tells her his life is too simple, and that she is the best thing that has happened to him in years. They kiss passionately, and with that, the movie ends. Did Robin ever love Frank? Did Frank self-sabotage himself on purpose? Let us know in the comments.